That's not an obstacle, that's an opportunity.
There, there you go.
That's just another hybrid, just another
right.
hybrid.
It is
That's right.
7:03 and you are now live. You can begin your meeting.
Okay, excellent. So, all right, well, welcome everybody to the March meeting of the Environmental Board of Oneonta. So, first thing, approval of minutes. Let me share those. I did see that I had a typo in my agenda. I can't spell February for the life of me. But you know, we all have to have, let's see, minutes of March 10th, minutes of, there we go. Share. There we go. So these are the minutes that I sent out a few days ago. Bonnie, should I be sending these to you as well?
Yes, we need them for file. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I've been sending them to Carrie, but I can send them to you for sure as well. So, oh, and I can't spell handling either. Oh, look at that. Or maybe I can, and oh, it's okay. So, did anybody have any questions or comments?
Would you scroll up a little, please?
Absolutely.
I didn't do my homework.
That's all right. I typed these up on Monday morning, so it's. I take the current meeting's agenda and I add my notes to it, and then I got to try to turn it into something resembling English. So I think I tried to capture everything. I'm also a big believer in not having lengthy minutes. But I think that captured anything. So does anybody have any questions or any additions that you want to make to it? No? All right. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of February meeting?
I will move.
Okay, Dave, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mike, thank you. And thumbs up or whatever for all approve the minutes. We got 1, 2, 3, everybody. Tracy, are you going to approve or not? All right. It turns out you don't have to actually be here to approve. So, all right. Just make sure it looks good. Okay, so the everybody said yes, no abstentions, no nays. So thank you very much. We'll consider the minutes approved. I don't know how to do petitioners these days. Bonnie, is there anybody wanting to comment that you can see in YouTube?
I have 4 viewers, but I have no comments that I see.
Okay. All right. I did get some correspondence from Dave Hutchison that I want to share. Let's see. So basically, he just sent an email regarding the city watershed. Remember, we talked a little bit about that last time. And so basically in 2017, he says the environmental board worked with the town of Oneonta, and in particular, Paul Neske, the town code enforcement officer, to develop a watershed overlay district for the city of Oneonta water supply. Chapter 101 in the town of Oneonta code is the document, and the town office has a map. As the city's reservoir is in the town, the city has no jurisdiction over it. However, the watershed protection district does give the city protection through the code enforcement officer of the town of Oneonta. So yes. So that should all be there if you have any questions about that. So thank you, Dave, for talking about that. So I just wanted to share that. Dave, I think he emailed you about some ginkgo trees. Did you? I guess we could talk about that at the urban forestry if you want. That seems to make sense. So moving on then into, oh, Gina, yes.
So I was contacted by someone, Janice LeBrew, who is a teacher and also heads the environmental club at the middle school.
Oh, yes.
So offering to, her club interested in helping out on any projects or volunteering. So I sent her a note about a few things we're doing.
All right. If you want to forward me along that email or something like that, I'd be happy to correspond.
It was a text. It was more informal.
Oh, okay.
I can cut and paste it.
No, that's all right. My younger daughter goes to middle school, so I'll be able to probably figure that out. So that's fantastic. We've been wanting to try to set stuff up like that. So, all right.
Possibly trees,
yeah,
and
it's a
where
great
trees
place.
might be, since they live in different parts of the city. And
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea, Dave. We should keep that in mind. I know Valley View had a beautiful big tree that had to come down a year or two ago, and they've got some space, and I know, I'm sure the principal there would be wanting to help out. And so that is a place to think about, to place some trees on the school property. I'm assuming that'd be okay. We'd have to ask permission, of course. But yeah, that's a good idea, Gina. Thank you. All right. So did anybody else have any correspondence that was shared with you as commissioners? Actually, right before we go, I meant to do this before the minutes, and I apologize for not doing that. I would like to introduce our newest member, Kathy. Kathy, do you want to kind of introduce yourself, come off mute, and tell us a little bit about yourself so that...
Sure. Some of you know me. I have just retired after an almost 50-year career as a licensed clinical social worker. Some years ago, I became very interested in expanding my practice, and I started taking classes in eco-psychology, which was very powerful in terms of my work with clients. But it also made it so clear to me that the more that we individually connect with the natural world, the healthier we are. That a lot of our modern day issues have to do with our disconnect from nature. So I'm interested in the environmental situation really from that standpoint. And I'm not sure how that's going to fit in with the committee, but in retirement, I felt like I needed to offer something. So here I am.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. And I'm glad that all worked out. I think you're one of 3 new people as of this January. Gina is, I think, coming up on her has had her 1-year anniversary, and I've been here, I think, 3 years probably. And Tracy, I don't know when Tracy joined. Tracy probably doesn't want to try to think about when he joined either.
A long time ago, but I'm phasing off. So
okay. So anyway, so Kathy, there's a lot of people that we're trying to meet. Since there's so many new faces here, we're taking that opportunity to make sure that we can find a place for everybody's interest. So I'm sure, Kathy, that you're going to figure it all out, just as the rest of us have, and we've been doing that. So I think Mark and Tracy can attest to that, since they are been on it before. Okay, so again, welcome. Thank you again. And Mark, I'm sorry, Council Member Davies.
Thank you. Yeah, so normally I come here and I say, well, we're really been doing the normal business of the council and a lot of COVID issues, and we've been working on our budget, and there's not a lot of exciting environmental news to share. And I give you little pieces that somewhat are linked to environmental related type of issues. However, this is a very different day, and I'm quite excited by this. So the city has put in for a grant, and it's a planning and scoping grant for up to $100,000 through NYSERDA. And the purpose of this grant is to explore the feasibility of introducing a thermal district for a thermal loop to have heat pumps attached to this thermal loop. So that way we can have, again, it's exploring the opportunity, whether the feasibility of this or not, but a thermal loop that would include Fox Hospital and perhaps run down into the downtown area, maybe even getting Market Street, so then back up and through there. In the past, we looked into a thermal loop using our municipal water source. However, the Department of Health shot that down, and they did not like the idea that we'd be running this thermal loop in conjunction with our water. So this is a little different format. It'd be using our waste and exploring the feasibility of that particular operation. So this is up to $100,000. The city is matching or putting in, I believe it's $5,000 from the top of my head towards this particular effort. It's also to help indicate our seriousness that we are approaching this particular project. We are one of the first cities to be applying for this particular grant that's been opened up through NYSERDA. So we're hoping that we get this, obviously, and then can conduct this study. And then if the feasibility of this thermal loop, if it looks good and we have some interest and we've reached out to some of the different big users, for example, like Fox Hospital, that we can then go ahead and move beyond planning, begin the implementation, and that there might be some grants available through NYSERDA. So it's a possibility of a several part grant. We would obviously have to apply for the other parts in terms of implementing this. But I think this is really exciting. And the reason why it's exciting is because this thermal loop would allow downtown businesses and any new development to be able to get into this loop. And the estimates is that it's about 30% savings to the businesses or whatever it might be to tap into this. So to do something on their own would be much more costly. This saves them about 30% from the top. And it begins to get us away from fossil fuels. And that's what's really exciting. So one of the limits to growth in this area is natural gas. And that's kind of one of those things we hear about. And there's been a lot of talk about pipeline coming in to be able to tap into that and bring natural gas into our particular area. We know that the Detroiter pipeline has its challenges and is undersized and probably needs to be replaced. But this is a really potentially a great solution to at least part of our energy problems within the city by creating this thermal loop. So again, this is simply a study of the feasibility of it, but I really want to applaud the city staff for exploring this and pulling together this grant in a very quick amount of time. And it's been submitted to NYSERDA, and we'll wait to see the results. But again, potentially this could be a really great opportunity for the city of Oneonta, and really begins to kind of indicate a little bit who we are and what we're all about to a larger public. And I'm certainly hopeful that this begins to create some interest in our city that may not exist otherwise. Gina.
Yes. So do you know of any other cities, small cities that look like us that have this technology?
I do not, Gina.
I think it's still the idea of district-wide geothermal, I think is still a pretty new thing.
In this country?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a straightforward implementation of the normal geothermal loop, right? And so that's one of the things relative. I mean, as far as straightforward things. Well,
you're talking about running it downtown. That's what I mean. So
well, I think Mark, you said it was running along our current sewage or wastewater, right?
Right. That's the thinking now. But again, this is what the feasibility plan is all about, to look at this and to try to understand how we would be able to do this and whether it would work the way we intended to work.
It's very exciting. Mike, I think Mike, you had a question?
Just wondering about timeline as far as the grant and the study.
Good question, Mike. From the top of my head, and I don't recall this was a big talking point when we were discussing this, but we put in for the grant. I think we actually submitted that last week, and we're hopefully we'll find out soon. And I think then we'd be able to start the feasibility perhaps this summertime if we're able to get that grant money at that particular time. So I think we're talking about within this year to be able to start the feasibility study.
Yeah, it's a $15 million for piloting this through NYSERDA. It's kind of on the front page of their website. And so, yeah, we're in the category A scoping study, it looks like. And then there's going to be money per project at the current moment. So I'm assuming that this will continue to go forward, given the state's commitment to reducing our fossil fuel use. So then there's the detailed design study, which would give you about $500,000 per project. And then the category C gives you 4 million per project for the construction of a shovel-ready community thermal system. So obviously that's not what we're going to be going this time around, but that's kind of giving you an idea, I think, of what a baseline that you can expect in the future. Kind of, I doubt the funding will go down from there. I mean, I guess I
Yeah,
can
and
take
again,
it away.
that's the steps that we would be able to take after we do this feasibility study.
So yeah, so that nice, what I'm impressed by this is that the NYSERDA is at the moment at least thinking, you know, it's great to be able to do a feasibility study, but you know, these communities also are going to need help to actually make this thing happen. So that's good.
Yeah, and the
Excellent.
implementation is up to 4 million, so that's a, you know, that's a nice number. But there's certainly at that point you need to get more. The city needs to put in money as well, so we'll have to explore that down the road too. So that's really all I have to report. Again, I just thought that was pretty exciting news, and just really a moment of pride in our city that we're kind of this forward thinking and looking into this.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. It was announced February 14th. So the fact that that the city went forward so quickly and was able to recognize this as a priority is very good news.
Well, I'll tell you, this made it to committee on February 22nd and made it to the Common Council the following week. I think it was actually March 2nd, and then it was approved and moved forward. So yeah, it's nice to see a quick turnaround on this. And
Have you heard it? Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to ask a different question.
Yep.
So, I was just going to say, have you heard anything about the bees?
That is being, so council reviewed the proposed ordinance that came from the environmental board. Spent a lot of time talking about that actually spent better part of 2 meetings, and then had some concerns. That was going to be revised by Code Enforcement Officer Stephen Yearley, and there's a council member from the legislative committee that's working with that. So basically using the ordinance language that was proposed by the environmental board to work with Stephen, but there's also just a couple of things that they're going to add to it. So they're working on that now, and they expect to have a pretty much ready to go ordinance by the next legislative meeting that will then move up to the council if that's approved.
Excellent, because we've hit the 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, it's been a little slow process, but I think, you know, everyone's trying to get it right.
No, I know, and it took a while. COVID
Right.
took a couple of months out of that. So,
Mark, did you say that we're the first city to apply for this?
We're amongst the first. I don't know how many other cities have put in, but because it was just announced and we jumped right on it, we were enabled to kind of get our foot in the door.
Oh.
We were hoping that would really indicate a little bit of intent, and the fact that the council approved putting some money forward to the project as well. So, you know, up to $100,000 plus $5,000 from the city is a little bit of a statement of intent that we're serious about investigating this. So we're hoping that also serves our grant application well, and that we're able to get that grant and move forward to the planning.
excellent. That is fantastic news. All right. So, all right. So in the agenda, the only standing committee that I've put in there for right now is the Urban Forest. We'll talk, I guess, about the new business, about the new structures that I was kind of thinking about that I put in my email. And we'll, of course, if anybody has anything that you wanted to add on, the other big thing in the committee reports that we had been talking about was Oneonta 2030. So we can come back to that when we're discussing, I guess, new business, or if you have something that you want to report, Gina, now you can do that as well. Since we did sort of arbitrarily, I did sort of change things at the last minute.
You know, I wrote up a bunch of notes, but I didn't type them up for sharing, but I did make some progress on ways in which, again, we could try to operationalize or take to the next step some of the 2030 language around transportation as it intersects with sustainable purchasing. So fleets, and as one area, planning for fleet replacement, cars, trucks, buses, ATVs, some questions about other kinds of vehicles, and small engine. So for example, considering emissions, this would be a goal, considering emissions and low emission goals for things like small motor equipment, lawn tractors, blowers. And again, there might be several departments that have different purchasing. So it might be those who do the city parks, and then others might be highway. So I also don't know the bureaucracy in the sense of which departments' budgets we might be thinking about. But this notion of sustainable purchasing is widespread practice. So one way to get a hold on how we think about planning and, again, implementing. Similar with sustainable purchasing of energy, and either purchasing or being both a producer and a consumer, a prosumer. And part of that, it seems to me, both the county, we've talked about it, but the city needs to ask NYSEG, how are you going to meet the New York State goals? What's your plan, and what's our connection, our role in it as your partner? So the city and the utility should be having a discussion here, it seems to me. So I was interested again in terms of sustainable energy purchases over time. And the third would be sustainable infrastructure, which we've also talked about, and not particularly our department, but in relation, our committee, but in relation with others. Building codes we've talked about for new development, but also promotion of greening buildings through heat, but also consideration of water use or reuse. Water hubs are out there. And then weatherization, which we've also talked about. So these are the things I need to type up and kind of submit so that people can see like the steps I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I think those are fantastic. I'm guessing one way that we're getting this, maybe that's what you're thinking about when you're talking about this, is that we could advocate that the city, as part of their purchasing, right? Every purchasing department everywhere has, here are the criteria that we look for when we're trying to make a decision amongst different vendors. And we could make carbon emissions, for instance, as the fleet, right? We want to have low miles per gallon. We want to try, if we can find, say, an electric vehicle to replace a gas vehicle, that might be something that we want. Yeah,
low emissions, not low miles per gallon. Sorry.
Right, low emissions. I was trying to, yeah.
The other way. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And it was amazing to me.
It's been a COVID decade.
Electric vehicles and electric infrastructure has already grown so much more than the last time I even looked at it. And we have so many charging stations right here in this city.
Yeah.
So it's
and
already
so that,
happening.
yeah. So if one thing that we could try to do is we can try to find language that maybe other municipalities have used for their purchasing. And we can find out, Mark, maybe where, it would be the obvious place to go would have been a city manager when we were under that structure. And since we're restructuring, I don't know who's going to be, what's the idea of who's going to be in charge of financial stuff like that?
Well, right now there's kind of a team approach to that, but I guess I'd need to think that through a little more. It might be better to put together, I think, as Gina was suggesting, a kind of recommended policy with regard to sustainable purchasing that we then would run through the council, so that the council then states that this is how we'd like to move forward, right? So if we work through city manager, but it gets to council and say it costs more for something, it gets shot down. Maybe the better way is to approve it through council, so that it becomes part of the buying and purchasing strategies and procedures. And then that might be the kind of, work with the city manager or city administrator or the department heads at that point to be able to create the purchasing policy.
But get the kind of make it have by having city council do it is putting that, saying this is what we're going to commit to, whoever down the road is in charge of this. So is that what you were kind of thinking, Gina, was kind of trying to put together a policy of
set of recommendations? But it seems to me also need to know more about how it's already done and existing because at the state level, we certainly have rules on procurement for all kinds of things. So I don't know what already exists, or again, if there already have goals that we just don't know about, and plans on the fleet, for example, in particular.
Right. Yeah, so who would that be a good person to contact then, Mark?
Well, I'll confess, I was supposed to do my homework and get that, but I forgot that
Mhm.
until I sat down and looked at my notes from the last meeting. So I need to dig around there. I think, it might be our purchasing agent. It might be, I have to understand a little bit more of that, who is doing the purchasing. And again, where that starts, but I'll look around and see what we can find out. And I don't know what the planning is, but I think that they do have planning. I just don't know how much it involves kind of sustainable thinking, but I'll look through that and get back to you, Gina.
Yeah, if we can get if we can get the procurement rules, then that would be from somebody, that'd be great. Thank you, Gina. Those are some really good ideas. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, just to follow up on charging stations, I think from what I've seen, I could be incorrect, but the charging stations are very much for electric cars, electric vehicles, are sort of, with the exception of the two on the Deach Street parking lot, they're sort of around the perimeter of the city. Whereas I've been thinking about the transportation hub and the renovation of the parking garage. I think it would be in the city's best interest to look into the possibility of increasing the number of charging station terminals right downtown for visitors and whatnot, to support, the tourism initiative as well.
Yeah, it seems like we got a lot of public parking. Why not put a few charging stations in each of the public parking lots?
I mean, there are two plugs basically downtown.
Right, because the rest of them are all by South Side.
Right.
All actually by the Tim Hortons, right? All at one spot.
Those are for Tesla only, I think.
No, they have new ones. They just commissioned my
my goodness.
My colleague he's got a Volt, so he's always on the lookout for new charging stations. So he is out there taking pictures for the national. Yeah, it's crazy, but they just got commissioned. So yeah, there's like four or five, and I think they're level 2 fast chargers.
All right, but I mean, we need a lot more downtown if we want to.
Right, especially for those of us who have mostly street parking and can't run a quarter across the sidewalk.
Just, string a couple 100 feet together. It's fine.
Paul, were you going to say, did you have something that you wanted to say? I think I saw you.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. The origin of the energy for the charging stations, is that still, I assume, mostly natural gas and not wind turbines, or?
It's going to be natural gas is the big one in New York State, followed by nuclear.
Yeah.
And then
Geothermal is bigger. I mean, water.
Oh, water is more is
Hydro.
right.
Hydro.
Right, it's hydro then nuclear. Right.
Okay.
But
yeah,
it's
I'm looking at the same data on my other screen about the different sources of energy in New York.
Yeah.
I did see that nuclear and natural gas with the
no more coal though.
ones. Yeah, coal's way down the bottom. It's like
I think it's 0. It's almost at 0 at this point.
It's 0.1%. I think I just saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the charging stations, then, they're currently running on that whole array of different energy sources. Is the idea to move towards wind turbines?
That's the idea the New York State is saying. Yeah. Gina?
Yeah, electrification is part of both making more efficient and cleaner production of energy. So electrification is the big idea, and how we source that is renewables. But I also wanted to add here that it's obviously relatively a lot less polluting throughout the whole life cycle, even if you're using natural gas to charge your car, than if you're using gasoline or diesel.
Yeah.
The other way to think about this, which is part of the opportunity, is to charge your vehicle, even with the fast charger, you need to hang out. This is a business development opportunity. Someone could build a cafe with charging stations like the place across from the Dietz lot. This is if we have a little bit of creative thinking, I think this is an opportunity, as Mark was saying, to make us have a destination, show our values through what we build in the infrastructure.
Sure, like the drive-in diners, right? Where you have the little tray on the side of your car, you plug in, you get a hamburger or whatever, or a veggie burger, in my case. And yeah, no, I mean, that is right. And both, I think that if we started to think about ways of encouraging the city to promote this as business, right? I mean, and there's some openings up along Main Street down past Fox Hospital and stuff like that. There's some great places, I think, where you could set up a little shop and electric charging station. Mike, you're off mute. What would you like to say?
I'm ignorant. How long does it take for a fast charger to typically to charge a vehicle?
To completely, I think it's 20 minutes or so. Yeah, Gina?
Depends on the age of the vehicle, how efficient the battery is. But if you're a contemporary model, you know, it can be 30 minutes to get 80% charge and you're on your way, that kind of thing. So it's
Okay.
quick, but not, you still have to do something with yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's the comparative cost of to drive my electric vehicle 30 miles versus a $3 gallon of gas? Which costs, are they similar costs?
The gas is.
You also have to have the cost of the vehicle to maintain it. So overall costs are much lower for electric vehicles. They're much cleaner. The maintenance is a lot less. And the electricity is generally not going to be significantly more expensive. Although we do have cheap gas, you know.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, cheap
generally,
gas is-
but yeah.
Yeah, but we have even cheaper electricity, I think. Average cost per mile for a gasoline powered vehicle is 9.3 cents per mile. An electric vehicle average across the United States is 3.6 cents per mile.
Oh, nice.
According to some radio station.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, those are, it's, I don't know if exactly how much that's gonna get, but there's a bunch of places that are looking that they're saying that the electric is cheaper per mile because you don't have the same maintenance costs either, as Gina pointed out.
The growth is very large in New York, so we just need to catch on with the wave that's already happening.
Just related to this, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but in the wintertime around here, it's cold outside. And one of my college students actually, her parents gave her an electric car for Christmas. And she's not a wealthy kid at all, I can tell, but she has her family got an electric car and she hates it because when she drives to see her friend or something 100 miles away in the wintertime, she can't run the heater. She can't run the blower because it wears out the charge so quickly that she has to stop frequently to charge it. She drove her car from Long Island to New Jersey, and she said it was a nuisance because she had to keep the blower off and she couldn't play the radio.
That's the first I've ever heard of that because my colleagues.
It's a problem, but
is it?
The best thing she could do is slow down. Your efficiency declines greatly when you're going 75. So
Yeah,
that's the problem. Probably, you know.
That's the problem with all aren't when you read your mile per gallon for a car. I think that's when the car is going about 55 miles an hour or something like that.
Yeah, about 45 to 55 miles an hour is the yes.
And
She's supposed to heat the vehicle before you take off so that you're not draining the battery to heat the vehicle. First you heat the vehicle. So anyway, she needs to just learn about her vehicle. Yeah.
There you go.
It's terribly inconvenient. She hates this thing.
Well, I'll buy it off her. I've been looking for one. Apparently the hard part around here is in the wintertime because the battery's all in the center of the car. And so some of the hills, sometimes you got to get a good running start. It's been what I've been told. But all right, so excellent. So thank you. So moving on to urban forest. Dave, do you have anything that you wanted to? I know it's still not the planting season, but I know you've been in contact with Hutch.
Yeah, he reached out. I think he CC'd the both of us on
about ginkgo trees.
Some plantings for some ginkgo trees, and I sent an email yesterday, I think, to Greg Mattice to try to find out what the details about the potential tree budget might be. I've also started looking into the sort of the Tree USA through the Arbor Foundation and what that entails, as well as I just recently discovered there's some great resources on the DEC website about urban forest and community forestry. And Gary Herzig, I don't know that I'll be able to make it, but he emailed me a link for registration for through the DEC to a conference of sorts next week on this very subject.
Oh.
I'm a teacher,
Yeah.
so doing things in the middle of the day is a little challenging without taking the entire day off. So I don't know if I can make that conference, but at the very least, included in that link was a contact at the DEC who specializes in this. So I have, I think I have a fair number of resources I can look into to, when the weather properly warms up and we want to actually make a run for it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the work that can be done here, and
Excellent.
glad to hear about the contact from the school environmental club, because we'll need help with shovels, I'm sure, when the time comes. But in the meantime, I guess it's just some footwork around the city to see where we need trees.
Excellent. Gina. And then Kathy.
I was walking in the West End today. Boy, we need some trees in that concrete area.
Gotta find a where to put them. Yes, Kathy.
Write it down.
I'm a newcomer here, so this may be old ground, but I walk a lot through town, and I love these trees when they're planted. And I have been so heartbroken to see how often they get knocked down. And I'm sure it's by kids roaming through town at night and they think it's funny or whatever to try and take these trees down. Has there ever been anything done to try and prevent that in any kind of a way? And I don't even know, I'm not suggesting I have an idea, but it's just, we go to all this work of putting these trees in, and then they're broken. They don't survive.
Well, that is looking into the Tree USA requirements. There are 4 standards that a community needs to meet to be certified. And one of those standards is establishing local ordinances regarding the trees of the community. So that would provide, enforcement is always a completely different conversation, but if the ordinance is in place, then at least there's some means to give our trees some protection, perhaps.
Yeah, we've dealt with this quite a bit, actually. And so we worked with the police. There is ordinance. I know there is some rules that have been put forward. Students get in serious trouble for pulling up the trees. It's almost impossible to guarantee that they won't do it. Fortunately, the saplings, they tend to not fool with them too much because they're just little bendable trees, But downtown, they pulled up many a tree. So it's just a matter of, educating people, trying to tell them not to do it. It's really what it comes down to. But when they're on their stagger route from the bars, that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, the ideas that you could think of as, again, education or putting little signs up explaining about the trees, stuff like that. But then again, as you said, the stagger home, that's.
Yeah, the drunks aren't going to read the signs. They're going to knock the signs down too.
Put it up on their
We
wall.
staked them out. So that was one thing that helped a little bit, just really staking them out, making, so
Right.
It's just a little bit harder, one more step to do it. But this has been an ongoing issue.
I'm sure.
Gina, were you going to say something?
Live wire.
Deer.
Works with deer.
I was going to say something. I refrained, but I'm glad somebody else did. my usual go-to is as a physicist is usually electrifying something. It's,
Wait, can we combine street trees and charging stations?
There you go. Like those little potato batteries. There we go. Be a very, very long charge. All right. So okay.
I'll have to tell you that so many years ago, like 10 years ago, when we first we were well into the tree planting program, but I got up one morning and somebody had pulled up a tree and planted it in my front yard. So I assume it must have been a student or somebody who knew me, and it came from a downtown planter. I put it back.
All right. Well, that is it. I don't know what to think about that. but it's a
Yeah.
good story. Oh boy, I guess at least they knew they were putting it in good hands, I suppose. All right, so as it stands, that's kind of what we've been talking about for our standing committees. So I wasn't sure exactly what what we might want to do from last week. I tried to kind of hit the big kind of themes that we had come out of that. And so before moving on to the new business, I just wanted to see if anybody wanted to elaborate further on some of those ideas. So Kathy, I don't know if you were able to catch any of the meeting on YouTube last month. No, I didn't. Yeah. One of the things that we were trying to do last month was to sort of plan out what we might do in the coming months. And I tried to reflect that in the minutes from last month. And so some of the big ideas, some of the ideas we heard were the no idling bill, or ordinance, I should say. Community engagement was a big one. So part of community engagement was, using the environmental board as a platform to discuss things like the importance of not knocking down trees, or why honeybees are not a threat to us, recycling and sustainability kinds of outreach kinds of things like that. And then a wonderful idea came up of going one better and getting the community ideas on their vision. What would the city of Oneonta, what would their residents, what are they actually interested in terms of the Oneonta environment? And so the idea there was maybe planning for later in the year some sessions for people to come to, much like when we were doing the city master plan a year ago or 2 years ago, and Oneonta 2030 before that. Maybe trying to establish some coordination with the town of Oneonta for sure, and other local communities. Access and connectivity to different public lands was the last kind of big thing that I had down in my notes. So I guess before we go on and talk about anything new, which is really just going to be an extension of this, I guess I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything, or if somebody wanted to add or come up with some other ideas. We only do have 8 more months or whatever of the year, so don't want to add too much. Gina, you look like you want to say something.
Oh, I'm breaking up, or sort of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you are.
Do you have update on the recycling bins?
I do not. Mark.
They're in the budget for this year. I'd have to check what, we did push some things to July in order to try to lighten up the front half of the year. I'd have to check when they're going to be purchased, but I think they're still front half that are going to be purchased.
Yeah, and I forget, there were like 2 or like 3 of them, or 4 for along Main Street.
I forget how many we had, but and I forget what the exact dollar amount was, but it was, it was something that came out of this board pushing for that, and that was wrapped into the budget.
Okay, excellent. All right, so does anybody have anything that they want to add? Did I misrepresent anything?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I thought that there was some type of a no idling bill in place in Oneonta right now. Maybe it's only amongst buses, but I thought that we did do this some time ago. I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure we did. There is a no idling, at least for buses, that they're not allowed to idle in the city. I'll look it up.
Yeah, I'm looking up E-code 360 right now. I don't know where I'd find it in there.
It was a goal in the 2030 document. So we definitely have one on campus as well, but not enforced.
Nuisances. No, that is for buildings. I love looking at the city code. There's some weird things in here. Vehicles and traffic. traffic signals, one-way streets, turning restrictions, speed limits, vehicle weight restrictions, parking, standing, and stopping. I don't see anything specifically about that.
I just remember we went through a period where buses could be fined if they were idling. So yeah, I'll dig into it a little bit more. I just thought I remembered something about it. It's a great idea, so I don't want to discourage us from doing that.
Right, no, but if you've already done it, it doesn't make sense. But I don't see anything specific about that in the transportation section of the
Okay.
code. Nope, it's mostly about parking.
Okay.
Yep. We have observed large trucks on Main Street delivering, but still idling. So they might have to be there for delivery, but idling is a real killer for Main Street
Yeah,
in a
it's
bunch of ways.
Parking is prohibited by the loading section. Yeah, all it says is that a vehicle that is stopped or standing within a loading zone shall not be unattended for a period of more than 10 minutes at a time. Yeah, I don't see anything about idling at all or anything sounding like that. Like I said, most of it is parking. So, all right, well, so we'll keep.
I could be also confusing it with SUNY Oneonta because I know we have like a 5-minute idling policy or something like that. It could be that I'm just mixing the two up.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, in my head, it is a who knows sometimes.
That's yeah, you get stuck there so often. So, all right. So, not hearing anything new about that, which is good because I think we came up with some really good ideas, and I think that one thing that I don't want to have happen is to get overwhelmed with stuff so that we try to take too much on. So, so again, since 3 members haven't really been a part of this when we've had longstanding committees, and Gina, you were only here for a little bit of time before the pandemic made it kind of not really something to do. And maybe Tracy and Mark can fill me in a little bit more about how this worked. But usually what happened was we had, I think there was 5 of them. There was urban forests, there was community plantings, which is kind of community gardens as well. I changed one of them to Oneonta 2030. I feel like there was one other one that had been long standing that I can't.
It was community gardens and community plantings. There was.
Oh, that's right. There's 2 separate things. That's right. And so usually that was, from my understanding, when I came onto the committee, that was just people had an interest in doing that. And the board thought those were was comprised that was something that we wanted to made sense to talk about every month as an update. Given the fact that we had such a big turnover and Mike had a great idea about thinking about what we might want to do this year, I thought we could use that opportunity to change things up. So in the email that I sent out to everybody about this, I kind of found 5 different committees, or if you will, I mean, they're not really committees, just people just talking about it, but kind of 5 different issues that I feel might come up based on a month, that should come up on a monthly basis that we sort of keep in tabs on. So one is transportation has clearly been a theme for the last couple of months. And I think that is something that we could probably do a lot of good this in a year. I mean, keep it going for as long as we want to, but it seems like that there are a lot of attainable things that we can do. Gina's already come up with a lot of great things that we can start to work on. Urban forests is an old one, but I think, Dave, you've been wanting to show a lot of interest in it. I think it's important for the city. And I think it's something that we really want to keep tabs on throughout most of the year. I thought we'd keep community engagement on there because that fulfills the roles of the outreach, but also we can use that as a time to discuss what we might want to do about organizing listening sessions, if you will, with the city residents. Mark reminded me that maybe we should put something in about energy. I just gave it a very bland name. I don't know what else to call it, but especially in light of this grant and other things like that, this might be something. And under energy, I can also think of the greenhouse gas inventories and stuff like that would be a place where we could report out on that. And again, if this is something that you're interested in, or a group of people are interested in a particular topic, these are just things that you guys can, we can work on and then report out to the board for comment and other things. And if it's a really big thing, we can put it on as part of new business. And then the last one that I put in there was kind of public spaces. This was what Mike had brought up, as I remember, and if I'm forgetting somebody else that brought it up, I apologize. But this could be, connections, right? So one of the things was ways we can work with the Greenway Committee and things like that, try to connect our parkland. This could be part of Safer Streets initiatives, some things like that. And we can change anything up that you want. It's your board as much as anybody else's. But these are the sort of the 5 things that I felt wouldn't dilute our energy too much and seem to catch the spirit of what we're all been interested in. Does this sound?
I mean, I like what you've done. Looking just back in my notes from last time, the 2 other things we talked about, and I don't know if they fit in this or if it's too much for us to take on, but I see we talked about sort of waste stream management, recycling issues, that kind of stuff. And the other was water issues, both pollution and watershed protection. I don't know if, I guess it all depends.
Actually, to be fair to me, I did put that in my email. There is interest in water and waste management as ongoing projects. We can add those in as well. So
it more depends, I think, on if there are people who want to be point people and want to take these things on or not, in a way, right? If we're thinking about it as a standing committee.
That was kind of my thinking on that, and I get to I see that, Gina. That was my idea. Was I was trying to reflect where I heard the most talking, and I use that as my proxy for things that we might want to make as a standing reporting. And I thought that maybe waste management or the water management might be things that we take on as separate things. But again, if somebody wants to take point on this and that be their kind of their focus for the upcoming year, I'll put that on there. I don't care. Gina.
I was just going to mention that recently there's been quite a lot of discussion in social media about the taste of Oneonta water and people complaining about chlorination. And I don't know if it's a seasonal effect, but it would be important for us to be in some kind of loop if there were significant changes or new challenges, I would think, to the quality of the water. I know that the last water reports I've seen, we have good quality water, but the perception also is that it's heavily chlorinated. So I don't know if that's the case or if we have a quality problem on the horizon.
Yeah, I've been reading the reports as well. The water looks, Tracy, you could probably say this better than us. It's good. I mean, there's that trihalomethane elevation. And so I get the impression that it's perception more than anything. Tracy, do you have anything that you?
I used to work with the city water treatment, not the city drinking water. Stan, he used to work. I can't forget the guy's name, but I used to send students there every year, and they, and there's never been a negative report. I mean, occasionally something happens, we get a little bit of turbidity in our water, but really the city itself has good drinking water. Elevated chlorination levels. I don't know. I mean, I taste it certainly in the city drinking water, but I don't know if it's any different than any other city. So I really can't comment on if that's changed or not. I don't know.
Well, there are some cities that are horrible
Yeah,
for water taste and chlorination.
I mean, it's a little hard, but that's all I've noticed. Mark, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'd be happy to look into that if you like and report back to this board the next meeting, at least on that particular issue.
We also just got our water and sewer bills that were very high, and I wonder if, maybe they're working on infrastructure.
Yeah, so if I could take this opportunity to address
Please do.
everyone about that, as well as anybody who's watching at home. Yeah, that was a tough call for us, right? We had to increase the water and sewer rates, and we have some major projects that we have to do. We have an old infrastructure, we have old equipment, and there were some times when we did not have any increases in the water and sewer bills, which meant that at this point we're now behind in what we need to do. So we took that little bounce to try to catch up a little bit, but we're going to be having more of a, and our treasurer, or not treasurer, our budget officer, Jenny Lee always says a slow and steady growth is what we'll be doing. So yeah, it was a tough one. I mean, I just got ours and saw it in ours as well, but we have some major projects coming up that we need to fund. And so that's really what that is.
Are you aware, Mark, of any opportunity, any grants or anything that the city can do to help people that might be finding it difficult to pay? I mean, that's a big, I don't know how big of a problem it is here, but I know that in other bigger urban areas, people are going without water because they can't afford it. I don't know if that's an issue here in Oneonta, but if it is, I hope that the city would have some way of being able to address that.
Yeah, that's a good question, Kevin. I'm not sure about the answer to that. I need to look into that as well. We did try to make it easier for people to pay, and we changed our billing system, and
Appreciated
that was the first step, and we're going to be moving a little bit more in that direction. But yeah, no, I recognize it's a big hit. But we looked at it, we analyzed it from several different. Analyzed it if we didn't increase it. We analyzed the increases at different rates, and everything put us behind that we were not going to be able to do the infrastructure improvement. And there's an entire plan, I forget how many years, I think it extends for 10 or 12 years, that we have to do these improvements. We have some major improvements that are going to be taking place this spring. So there's quite a bit. And we also are subsidizing as much as possible with grants, but the grants don't cover everything as well.
Right. No, I understand that. I was just, this last fall, I just became more aware of water poverty, if you will. And so this just seemed like a good time to raise that as an issue.
Mark, it's late for this year since it's already a done deed, but I wonder if the council looked at, I remember when I lived in Wisconsin, there was a program where basically people get rebates on their water bill for installing, low flow toilets or that kind of stuff, basically encouraging people. I forget whether it was a federally funded program or a state funded program or locally, but essentially encouraging people to decrease their water use and getting a rebate to help them do it. I wonder if that's something that this committee or that council could start thinking about now for a year from now.
Well, I would, yeah, I think you've suggested it right. I think that if that was interest, this board could look into suggesting some practices that way. I think that we are all very open to that. We're trying to figure out how to decrease the hit on folks and on the average citizen, as well as make sure that we're able to maintain our infrastructure. So if there are suggestions in terms of ways that folks can reduce their water usage, which helps the overall system and might reduce their bill, if there's rebates, I think that incentivizes kind of smart water use. So yes, we're open to that. I'll tell you what, that was a tough vote for all of us. We struggle with that because we recognize that, especially this year, it's been tough times financially for a lot of folks. But we also recognize that if we kick this can further down the road, in a couple of years, we're going to be looking at a massive increase that was really going to be, well beyond anything that people could afford. So we get back on track. We keep with the slow and steady approach, and that is then, the best way to be able to keep funding these projects moving forward.
Gina.
Well, it just makes me think of, again, this notion of water hub, and particularly on the SUNY campus, as both a user and a source of runoff and all sorts of things. So Emory has a water hub. There are other universities that do this, and
Can you explain what a water hub is?
well, so that there would also be reuse of capturing in a system, and I'm no engineer, but so that you're using less and you're reusing more and you're controlling runoff, which the campus has certainly been working on that in a big way too, with catch basins and things. But the water hub, again, is the reducing of usage of the resource.
I see. Oh, cool. Kind of like Dune. But maybe a little bit less gross. Yeah. All right. Okay. So that is something that, I want to get back. I thinking about what Mike was just saying too. Does the city have the ability to be able to incentivize such things through? I know our tax structure is a little bit different than just, it's not, we're not paying an income tax, for instance, to the city of Oneonta. But does the city? It would be interesting to think about ways that we could maybe incentivize, especially maybe for property tax or something like that, where if you can demonstrate that you've got this, that we can then get a reduction in your water bill or some other incentivization. I don't know how our structure is set up for that, or if it's even within our, even if we're legally allowed to do that. I wouldn't be entirely sure. But that might be something worth looking into. Okay, so
Fading.
yeah, I know it's tough. I do appreciate everybody's time doing all this stuff. That's okay though. We don't have to. Not every meeting has to be a super long one. So what I would be interested in doing, since it doesn't, I'm not hearing. I think I heard a collective sigh of relief across the city just now when I said that not every meeting has to be a long one. I would just be interested right now, though, in hearing. Do we feel that we should add to the committees that I listed? Do we want to do something with water? Do we want to put in a recycling or waste stream standing report? Or are we fine with this? And if we're fine with this, or we want to add that, who wants to do what? And we can change that too. I mean, it's not hard. Kathy, I think I saw your hand go up.
Okay. And I may be throwing a whole bunch of stuff into the works here.
Oh, good.
And I'm coming to this, I think, from maybe a little bit different perspective. I'm hearing a lot about very practical things that the city can do to affect the environment. Is that correct? Is that pretty much what this is about?
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it's fair.
Yeah. Okay. So, the way I'm coming from it is that, I mentioned earlier my interest in eco-psychology, and my work with that really heightened my awareness of how very, very important it is for all of us to be aware of our connection with the natural world. And the more that we are aware of that, the more we're willing to do the work to take care of it, and therefore be willing to do these things that we're all talking about here. The things I'm hearing about are policies the city can put into place, actions the city can take. But the reality is, at some point, the average citizen around here, the average world citizen, has to start to realize the importance of our everyday actions on the globe, and how that affects our ability to continue to live on this earth. And so to me, that brings in an educational piece, perhaps. And maybe that's beyond the scope of this committee. And if it is, that's fine. I'm willing to contribute any way I can. But is there a way to add some educational element to some of this stuff to help people be individually aware, not only of their responsibility to the earth, but of what they get back from being more connected to nature. That the work that I've done has shown me that, you know, things like anxiety and depression and addictions can all be counteracted by increasing your connection with the natural world.
No,
So that's what I'm bringing here. And if that's useful, fine. If it's not, that's fine too. I'm still willing to help out here and do the work. But I'd like to just throw that out as something for us to think about.
no, absolutely. Just real quick, Dave, I saw I got your email, so if you got to take off, I understand. Thank you for joining us, and you'll pretty much sure what we're going to talk about. So have a good night then. All right.
Thanks very much. Good night.
Yep. So Kathy, absolutely, you are right. I've been talking about that for quite some time, and when I you know, again, because I think I've been doing this a while, and I know what I was talking about. I assume that everybody else does. When I talk about community engagement, we did talk about that as listening, but it was also outreach. And to me, part of that outreach is, you know, part of it certainly be talking about our place in the environment, the importance of being a part of the environment. It could be very much hosting or talking about people getting out into that. You know, I was also thinking of the community engagement as being a place where other environmentally oriented groups might want to tell where we can advertise for some of these things, like nature walks and some of the stuff that OCCA is doing and things like that. So I really believe, I think the rest of the board has shown some interest in that as well. So I would think that would be a very major part of the part that I was calling the community outreach engagement. Absolutely. If anybody else wants to correct me.
I see it also as community engagement, and well, we have Earth Day coming up. We can't quite do what we might want with engaging and having events outside, but maybe we could do some, or maybe Kathy, you can help us think about how we encourage people to heal themselves by going out into nature a little bit during these times. I know that last year, one thing I did with students was encourage them to write a haiku, go outside for 10 minutes and write a haiku in early days of COVID. And it was absolutely therapeutic for them. So I would love to hear more. You know, community engagement can be a big umbrella.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know, one of the things that COVID has done has increased the amount of activity that people are doing outdoors. You know, the trails in the Catskills are overrun. They've had to cut back on how many people they can allow there. You can't buy a bicycle anywhere. You can't buy a kayak because everybody has, I think, realized that that's one thing you can do even with COVID. And so there's a huge opportunity, I hear, to really support and encourage that awareness of what that can do for everybody's well-being as well as for helping to heal the earth.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad, Gina, that you reminded us all of Earth Day coming up. Because one thing that we had talked about in previous meetings, and I keep meaning to do that, was to create a social media presence for the environmental board. And, you know, Earth Day could be a great time to unveil that. And there'd be enough time to sort of get that ready. And if we can come up with a few things to seed our posts, that would be fantastic. And I think that would be a great way to start this all off. Also, by Earth Day, the weather will be more or less, you know, suitable for the unadventurous to go outside, perhaps. Any thoughts on that, maybe? I mean, I'll be happy to start that all up. But
well, the tree sighting could also be an interactive way to have the community saying, hey, yeah, we need a shade tree here, or, does this have part of that discussion?
Yeah, no, that's actually also a really good way to get out a poll. Like, where do you want to see a tree? Yeah, Mark.
Kevin, you kind of hinted upon it, but I think to speak to Kathy's point a little more, I think there's a real opportunity to partner with some of the great organizations that we have within the area that are doing some great things. You mentioned OCCA. They've certainly done some nature walks down here, and in the past, the Environmental Board has collaborated with them in terms of assisting with some grants. But for example, ADK, there's a chapter of ADK here. There's some different groups that do some walks. I mean, it might be great to be able to promote some of this by working with existing groups, and rather than kind of recreating what groups are doing, that this board plays a real role in facilitating, hopefully getting more people to engage with some of the existing groups and build those partnerships that would, serve the community.
That was my hope, was to also be part of as a pass through, so that we wouldn't be always just creating these things. Gina.
I do have one concern, that there are people who are not being able to go out and, hike and bike. And so people who live in, somewhat urban environment here, that their main exposure to the environment is going to Neowa Park. So maybe they don't have the fuller experience, but maybe we can do some things that are appropriate for other communities as well. And whether Boys and Girls Club or some ways in which we can, again, try to think about this also from that environmental justice perspective.
Absolutely. It's the environment is a place where we work, learn, play, and live. And so that also goes in with, I think, what Mike was saying last month about trying to connect our public spaces a little bit more, and getting the public spaces used a little bit more, getting people to think of the public spaces as a place to get in touch with nature a little bit more as well. It doesn't just have to be all the big trailways. Mark.
No, Gene, I agree with you 100%. When I was saying ADK, that we have a chapter of the ADK down this way, I'm asking for us to go no further than our own trail system. Let's promote that, because we have some really great recreational opportunities right here within the city that I think very few people know about. So I agree with you. This would get more of our local folks out here without needing to, get in the car and drive to the Catskills. We can do it right here.
I mean, just even something as simple as, did you know how to get to the New Island Trail? Right? I mean, that mystified me for a long time, to be honest with you. I was mystified finding Pine Lake for the longest time, but I advocated for the longest time for Hartwick to tell new faculty and staff and students how to get there, but that never. I did get to have a faculty meeting there once, though, so that was good. So yeah, so those are all those ideas. Mike, you came off mute.
Yes, I think maybe we're at the point. I want to suggest that I think this is the way you're moving, Kevin, is to have people volunteer, say which of these committees they'd like to be a part of. But I think starting with community engagement, that you have a great idea here, and we have a target of 6 weeks from now to create a social media presence of some kind. If that could be the first thing that committee took on.
Absolutely, perhaps. That was my plan. I mean, I was going to probably, yeah. So if somebody wants to take that on, that'd be fantastic. It's also my interest. I don't think it has to be one person doing this. I think a group of people together can be working to. The old report structure was just basically one person, one committee, kind of. I'm more than happy to not do it that way. Just that we have that, but it'd be nice to have at least have one or two people that we have for each of those things that are kind of the core people to take care of that. So I guess I will do it this way. How about this? So Gina, of those committee structures that I was talking about, I can re-go over them if you'd like. I have them right here. I did have them right here.
In the near term, I'm on, transportation and energy.
Okay. So let's see. So Gina, transportation and energy. All right. See, I'm just going to do it this way. I'm just going to Kathy, what would you like to kind of focus on right now? And it could be one, it could be two, whatever. It doesn't have to be.
I think based on what I'm hearing, that it sounds like community engagement probably would be where I could be the most help. But I will say that in terms of doing something on social media, no, I'm not good at that at all. I
We'll,
can have ideas, but putting them on social media is not my thing.
yeah, if need be, I'll take that on as my dumb idea. But I would need content help and stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely. So no, that sounds fantastic. Tracy, is there anything that you kind of? I know things are kind of in flux for you.
I mean, honestly, this is probably my last meeting. I will be moving out of the house in Oneonta, and I feel there's I don't feel like I should be on the environmental board if I'm not living in the city of Oneonta. I think there's an issue there. So I definitely need to transition off. And so, I've been on the board since 2003. And
no, I understand.
But if anybody wanted to take on water, I mean, I used to do from 2003 to 2010, I used to run an Oneonta Creeks program where we looked at the water quality of all the creeks in the Susquehanna River and reported that to the environmental board, as well as to the city drinking water. Dan Schaefer was the guy's name I was looking for earlier.
Okay.
In the water treatment facility. So I'd be happy to share all of those reports. It's a great program that would be cool to revise.
I would certainly like to do that.
I have all of those reports. I'd be happy to share them, but I don't really feel like that I should probably transition onto anything else at this point.
That was, I figured as much.
It for me.
I know, I kind of knew as much. I didn't want to presume too much, and I wanted to acknowledge your expertise in things. I didn't,
thank you.
But I also don't want you to feel like that you have to. I fully understand.
Well, it's been hard because the environmental board has just been a part of my life for a long time. It's hard to let go.
No, I understand, and we'll certainly miss you when you do finally decide that it is time to go. So in the meantime, you're welcome to stay here for as long as a member for as long as you want. And you can just pipe in as needed, and we won't put any further commitments on you for that right now. God knows you've got enough of them. So Mike, what are you thinking of?
Well, I'm definitely interested in public spaces. Although I don't want to sort of long-term be focused on community engagement. I'd be happy in the next month to help think about social media and how to structure that. So short-term, I'm happy to help with that.
Okay. Well, and like I said, I mean, none of these things are going to be just the purview of, one or two people. I think we're all going to be contributing in different ways to that. But I'm just trying to think of people who are going to sort of take the initiative. And so I was certainly going to ask you for help on that, being the photojournalist that you are. Paul, do you have anything that you're interested in?
I think I could work with public spaces and urban trees.
Okay. And I think
I could certainly plant some trees. I could do that well. I could dig some holes, put some ginkgo trees in there, watch the college kids at night. And public spaces sounds interesting too. We'd like to follow up on that.
Okay, that sounds great. So we're actually pretty well covered.
Mark raised his hand.
Oh, Mark, go for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kevin, mean to cut you off. If I could be so bold to suggest something, and I did text you about this. One point when I was on the environmental board, we'd explored the idea of having, folks that aren't on the board involved with some of these subcommittees. And it didn't go far because there wasn't a lot of folks that were really interested in doing this, because there's not a lot of folks that are interested in kind of doing work. It was hard enough oftentimes getting board members. But I've certainly had contact in the past couple of weeks from two people that were interested in getting involved with the environmental board. And I think that some of these committees would be the perfect place to involve somebody. They get passionate about something. They can work with the committee on something. Maybe they have a piece that they're doing, but it fits in. Maybe they're a liaison with an existing group in town. I think there's an opportunity to use folks. And I know Tracy perhaps might be escaping, but that's a way, for example, Tracy, if you had an interest, if there was a water project, you couldn't serve on the board, but you could certainly, your expertise could come to bear in that particular project, kind of as an outside, just a committee member who was interested in the particular topic. So I put that out there as a way to maybe get more people involved in these and perhaps push some of these projects further.
I too have one or two people that have reached out to me in the last couple of weeks. I don't know what's been going on the last couple of weeks, but seriously, in the last month, I've had, I think, two people reach out and say that they wanted to help, or like Kathy's case, be on the board. And so I think that's a great idea. And my plan was to try to, once we've established what we wanted to do this year, I was going to go ahead and do that. So Mark, if you have those contact people, that would be great if you just forward them to me, and I can make sure they're not the same people that contacted me. And then once we get these sort of structures into place, we can invite them to think about if they want to participate. I fully agree. There's too much stuff to be done by just the 6 or 7 people that are here. And, I think this is going to work. This works best when we get the people, the city trying to participate as well. And that, again, is part of the community engagement that I think it was Gina that had brought up last month. And not just tell us what they want to see done, but in some cases also help. For instance, I would like to encourage the people that were pulling the Japanese knotweed out. At the very least, help them get more bodies, to be a part of that, and maybe even report out to the board what they were able to accomplish, so that they can be publicly acknowledged and thanked. Even that could be a big deal. Just recognizing the work that they've done for the city. Anything else? All right. Oh, Gina.
Sorry, I did
Nope.
look up for the geothermal loop, Klamath Falls, Oregon, Mark. They have a nice system.
Cool.
Not surprised.
Well,
Thanks, Gene. I'll take a look.
Pacific Northwest, that whole Pacific coast, right, is
Yeah.
it's part of the Ring of Fire, right? So, I mean, if geothermal is not happening there, something's wrong.
They use it also to melt sidewalks. That's a part of how we sell it.
They do that. I heard about that in Colorado too. They'll do some of that.
Yeah.
That's right. So excellent.
Kevin,
Yes.
Kevin,
Mike.
I ask, were you going to sign yourself up for specific committees?
Oh, you caught me out. Yeah, because I was going to name too many of them. So I was probably going to either work on the community engagement, depending. That's probably one of the main things I was going to do, but nobody else was picking up on energy, so or transportation. So I didn't want to leave Gina in the lurch with that as well. So. But I'll probably put most of my focus myself on community engagement and energy, and help Gina out on transportation as needed. Although she's got that well in hand. I just don't want to. Not that I don't think you can do it all on your own, Gina. I just also don't want to make it feel like you've have to do it all on your own. Mike, you got a Dostoevsky thing going on right now. That between the beard and the lighting, it's all very much notes from an underground thing going.
I've been working on my Rembrandt lighting here.
I fully approve. All right, so excellent. I think that's it. Do I hear anything else that needs to be said? No. All right, so we'll call this meeting closed at 8:27. Again, thank you all for participating. It's a pleasure working with you all, and I'm really excited about the upcoming months. So have a good night, everybody. Stay
Good night.
safe, and we'll see
Thank
you
you,
next
Kevin.
month. Yep. Thank you, Tracy.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.